on. Players have been given authorization to strike if needed, hanging over the owners' heads. The owners now have the ability to lock them out if they choose to do so. However, what the owners understand, if they were to lock these players out, well, the players would run to social media, the players would run to their Instagram account, the players would run to the 46,000 and cry wolf. Oh, you see? They locked us out. See, we had the strike in our back pocket and we didn't use it. They locked us out.
January 9th just passed. No new CBA, no extension, and now we're in what they're calling a status quo period. But here's what that really means. Both sides can now pull the nuclear option. Players can strike, owners can lock them out, and the clock is ticking on the entire 2026 season.
Why lose momentum that you are currently gaining? Why lose a public favor that you currently now have by locking these players out? Let's get right into it. Please like the video, comment, and subscribe. That would mean so much to me. What we're hearing on the WNBA's CBA negotiations.
Notice what he's saying there. The owners aren't locking anyone out. They're sitting back, looking reasonable, while the players hold the strike authorization. That's strategic, because whoever makes the first move loses the public relations war. And in a league that's finally gaining mainstream attention after the Caitlin Clark effect, public perception is everything. The owners learned something crucial this past season. Momentum matters more than winning a negotiation battle if it costs you the war.
What does this status quo period mean, and what are the implications for the 2026 season? ESPN examines both, plus what Stewart and other players are saying about the negotiations in Miami, where 50-plus WNBA players are competing in the second season of Unrivaled. What does status quo mean? Let's get into it. For one, not a work stoppage, at least not yet. Under the status quo, the working conditions of the current CBA would be maintained, and the league and union can continue negotiating.
2 extensions already happened. 30 days in October, 40 days in November. Both sides kept negotiating in good faith, or at least that's what they claimed. But when January 9th hit, Breanna Stewart made it clear, no more extensions. The Players Association drew a line. Now we're in uncharted territory. The expansion draft that should have happened in early December hasn't happened. Free agency that was supposed to start January 11th, frozen. The entire offseason is on hold.
Owners. Sources told ESPN that the league has not been contemplating a lockout, but a strike has been considered for the players. So the league not contemplating a lockout shows their good faith. The players saying, you know what, we're going to strike, shows the bad faith of the players. I think this is a good move for the owners, actually. They can kick their feet up, look good, and if the players want to strike, it's just a dash on the players.
Here's where it gets complicated. Status quo means the current CBA terms stay in effect while they negotiate. Teams can operate. Players still have contracts. But it also means both sides can now deploy their weapons. The strike authorization the players voted for, that's loaded and ready. The lockout option owners have, same thing. It's a standoff. The league says they're not considering a lockout, which sources confirmed to ESPN, but the players, they're absolutely considering a strike. And that asymmetry is intentional. Think about the optics. If owners lock out the players, it looks like billionaires shutting down working women. The headlines write themselves. But if players strike, that's different. That looks like employees refusing to work during negotiations. The owners are playing this perfectly from a PR standpoint. They're offering massive salary increases, a 233% jump in the salary cap from $1.5 million to $5 million, and they're still positioned as the reasonable party. Meanwhile, the players keep saying the offers aren't good enough, but they're not explaining what would be good enough.
On the issue of revenue sharing and what such a system should look like, a source told ESPN that the league has yet to respond to a recent proposal from the union because it wasn't significantly different from the Players Association's previous offer. We said no to the previous offer. The new offer that you just is still not adequate. So if I already said no to the other offer and you're pretty much sending me the same thing, just changing a few words, well, the answer is still no. So until you show us that you're serious, then we'll, get back and engage.
Revenue sharing. That's the real sticking point. The league's latest offer includes players receiving roughly 70% of net revenue. Sounds great, right? Except here's the catch. Sources familiar with the negotiations say that 70% of net revenue equals less than 15% of total league revenue. That's the gap. The players want a percentage of gross revenue like NBA players get. The owners want to calculate it based on net revenue after expenses. And those are two completely different numbers. The league's proposal would put max salaries over $1.3 million before revenue sharing kicks in. With revenue sharing factored in, max salaries could hit $2 million, average salaries would exceed $530,000, potentially reaching $780,000 with a revenue sharing model. Over the course of the proposed deal, those numbers would climb even higher. By any objective measure, that's a massive increase from where things stand now. But the players are saying it's not enough because they don't trust the net revenue calculation.
They are trying to take away housing and cars. If you try to take something away, what's in place of it? You up the money, but just because you gave us 100,000 more doesn't mean a housing complex is going to sublease for us, especially for 4 months. Is the contract guaranteed? What if a player gets traded, they still got to deal with the apartment? Some said that if the league reinstated team housing into the new CBA deal, there might be space for the union to give in on some other areas. Quote, they need to keep housing. That is a huge thing. They can't get rid of that, a player told ESPN. But if they say, okay, but then we're going to extend the season, you need to play more games, and it's going to take more months of the year, I would be okay with that as an example.
And then there's the housing situation. Teams currently provide housing for players during the season. It's in the current CBA, but the league's new proposal removes that benefit. Their logic, if we're quadrupling your salaries, you can afford your own housing. The player's response. Housing isn't just about money. It's about the reality of being a professional athlete in a 4-month season. Try finding a landlord who'll give you a 4-month sublease. Try dealing with getting traded mid-season when you're locked into an apartment lease. The guaranteed housing removes that complexity. But here's what's interesting. One player told ESPN that if the league keeps housing, they'd be willing to give ground on other issues. Specifically, they mentioned being okay with extending the season, playing more games, taking up more months of the year. That's a real trade-off. The league wants a longer season for more revenue opportunities. The players want housing security. There's a deal to be made there, but so far, neither side is budging.
I wish I would know who they can put that name to. Paige Becker's added, think about that. Their gripe is 4 months. Okay, let's say we extend the season to 6 months plus postseason. We have a 7-month season, give or take. Then you'll be okay with us not providing housing? Okay, 6-7 month season. Well, if I'm the owners, well, I might think maybe I could get more ticket sales. Maybe I could get more advertising dollars.
Now let's talk about Paige Bookers for a second. She's been vocal about the negotiations, talking about what the players deserve, what they're not willing to compromise on. And look, I respect Paige. She's an incredible talent, but here's the uncomfortable truth. She has zero leverage in these negotiations. She's a rookie who hasn't played a single WNBA game yet. She hasn't sold tickets, she hasn't moved ratings, she hasn't proven she can put people in seats or keep them on their couches watching at home. Compare that to Caitlin Clark. Clark's rookie season brought 3.2 million viewers to the WNBA Finals. She drove attendance records in multiple cities. She changed the conversation around women's basketball. That's leverage. When Clark speaks about CBA negotiations, owners listen because she's proven she can generate revenue. Paige hasn't done that yet. So when she's talking about what players deserve and what compromises are off the table, it rings hollow. She's negotiating for a piece of a pie she hasn't helped bake.
Total league revenue. The salary cap would increase to $5 million, up from $1.5. The max player salaries would be more than $1.3 million, with the league's proposed revenue sharing model factored in. Average salaries would exceed $530,000, including revenue sharing. Max salaries and average salaries would increase to $2 million and $780,000, respectively, over the course of the WNBA's proposed deal. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I appreciate all of the support. Like the video, comment, and subscribe.
Here's where this gets really interesting for the league's timeline. If negotiations drag on much longer, we're looking at a condensed offseason that would be absolute chaos. Last year, The expansion draft happened in early December. Free agency ran from January 11th through February 1st. The college draft was April 14th. That's a nice, spread-out timeline that gives teams time to strategize, negotiate, build rosters thoughtfully. But if the CBA doesn't get done soon, we're talking about cramming all of that into maybe 6 to 8 weeks. Expansion draft, free agency period, WNBA draft, training camp, all happening rapid fire. Teams would have to make massive decisions with almost no time to evaluate options. Players would be signing contracts, getting traded, relocating, all in a compressed window. From a chaos standpoint, it would be incredible content. Moves happening every single day. Trades, signings, draft picks, all overlapping. The rumor mill would be on overdrive. But from a league operations standpoint, it would be a nightmare. Teams need time to scout free agents, negotiate contracts, coordinate with sponsors, sell tickets, market new players. Condensing all of that creates mistakes. Bad contracts get signed, poor roster decisions get made. Players end up in situations that don't fit. And ultimately, that affects the product on the court, which affects ratings, which affects revenue, which affects everyone's bottom line. The league sources that ESPN talked to believe both sides will get a deal done and there will be a 2026 season. But belief isn't the same as certainty, and the longer this drags on, the more pressure builds on both sides to just accept something, anything, to avoid the chaos of a compressed offseason. Or worse, missing the season entirely. Let's talk about the strike authorization for a minute, because the timing here is crucial. The players voted to authorize a strike back when they still had leverage, when the season was ongoing and a work stoppage would have actually hurt. But they didn't use it then. They waited. And now, the season's over. Nobody's watching WNBA games in January. A strike right now has almost no impact on the league's revenue, because there's no revenue being generated anyway. The time to strike was during the season, specifically right after Caitlin Clark got injured, and everyone knew viewership would tank. That would have been maximum leverage. Force the owners to negotiate seriously, or lose the rest of the season's revenue. But the players didn't pull that trigger. They held on to the strike authorization like it was this powerful weapon, and now it's basically a water gun. Threatening to strike in January when there are no games scheduled anyway, that's not leverage. That's theater, and the owners know this. That's why they're comfortable not locking anyone out. They don't need to. They can just wait. Keep making reasonable offers that look good on paper. Let the players be the ones who look unreasonable for rejecting salary increases and improved working conditions. The public sees headlines about players potentially striking after being offered a 23% salary cap increase, and they think, what more do these women want? But here's what the players would say: it's not about the raw numbers, it's about the percentage of revenue. NBA players get roughly 50% of basketball-related income. That's the model the WNBA players want. They're not asking for NBA salaries, they're asking for the same revenue split structure. And when the league offers them 70% of net revenue, but that only equals 15% of total revenue, they see that as owners playing accounting games, hiding the real money behind expense calculations and operating costs. The problem is, the WNBA isn't the NBA. The NBA is profitable. Every team makes money. The WNBA, according to the league, still operates at a loss. Most teams lose money. The league is subsidized by the NBA, so asking for an NBA-style revenue split, when the revenue situation is completely different, doesn't make mathematical sense to the owners. They're looking at this saying, we're offering you a bigger piece of a pie that's still not fully baked. Be patient. Grow with us. The players are saying, we are the ones growing the pie. Pay us accordingly now. And both sides have a point. The league did see massive growth. Attendance records were shattered in multiple cities. Viewership numbers were up across the board. Caitlin Clark's games were averaging better ratings than some NBA games. The players absolutely contributed to that growth. But it was also one season, one anomaly year driven largely by one player. Is that sustainable? Will 2025 maintain those numbers without Clark's rookie season novelty? Nobody knows. That uncertainty is why the owners are hesitant to commit to a revenue-sharing model that could bankrupt teams if the growth doesn't continue. And it's why the players are frustrated, because they feel like they're being asked to prove themselves over and over again, while NBA players got their 50% split decades ago and never had to re-justify it every time the league had a down year. The housing issue is actually a microcosm of the entire negotiation. On the surface, it seems simple. League says we're paying you more, you can afford housing. Players say housing is a quality of life issue, not just a money issue. But dig deeper and it reveals the fundamental disconnect. The owners are thinking about this like a traditional business negotiation. Compensation goes up, benefits can go down, net result is players are better off financially. The players are thinking about this like a partnership. We're growing this league together. Don't take away the things that make our lives easier just because you're paying us more. And that player who told ESPN they'd accept a longer season in exchange for keeping housing. That's the kind of creative deal-making that could break this deadlock. The league wants more games for more revenue. The players want housing security. Trade one for the other. Extend the season from 4 months to 6 months. Add 20 more games to the schedule, keep the housing benefit, and suddenly both sides get something they actually want instead of just arguing over percentage points on revenue split. But those kinds of creative solutions require both sides to actually trust each other. And right now, there's no trust. The players think the owners are hiding money behind accounting tricks. The owners think the players are being unrealistic about the league's financial situation. Neither side believes the other is negotiating in good faith, even though they keep saying they are. The status quo period could actually be good for both sides if they use it right. It takes the pressure off. No more deadline extensions. No more artificial timelines forcing rushed decisions. They can negotiate without the clock ticking down. But it also means no urgency. And without urgency, negotiations can drag on forever. Both sides can just keep restating their positions, waiting for the other to blink first. And meanwhile, the 2026 season gets closer and closer, with no resolution. Here's my prediction: they'll get a deal done, but it's going to take longer than anyone wants. We're probably looking at March or April before something gets finalized. That means a condensed off-season, rushed free agency, chaos in the draft process. It's not ideal, but it's better than missing the season entirely. The owners won't lock out because the PR would be terrible. The players won't strike because they already missed their window for maximum leverage. So they'll keep negotiating. Both sides will compromise more than they want to admit publicly. And eventually they'll announce a deal that both sides will claim as a victory, even though nobody got everything they wanted. The real question is what that deal looks like. Do the players get a true revenue sharing model or just an improved salary structure? Does housing stay or go? Does the season expand or stay at 40 games? Those details matter because they set the precedent for the next CBA negotiation, and the one after that. This isn't just about this is about whether the WNBA becomes a league where players are true partners in the business, or just well-compensated employees. And that's the fundamental tension that's not getting resolved in this negotiation. The players want to be treated like partners. The owners want to treat them like employees with really good benefits. Until one side gives on that core philosophical difference, these negotiations are going to keep hitting the same walls over and over again. So where does that leave us? January 9th came and went. No deal, no extension, status quo in effect. The owners are playing the long game, looking reasonable, not forcing anything. The players are holding their strike authorization, trying to maintain leverage they don't really have anymore. And everyone's waiting to see who blinks first. My money's on a deal getting done eventually, but not before this gets messier and more public than either side wants. What do you think happens next? Do the players have any real leverage left, or did they miss their chance? Should the owners just keep the housing benefit and extend the season, or is removing housing a fair trade-off for quadrupling salaries? Let me know in the comments, because this negotiation is far from over, and your perspective matters. Like and subscribe if you want more WNBA coverage as this situation develops. Because trust me, it's going to keep developing for months.